Right, folks. So this is Math 7, Chapter 10 of the textbook, Patterns and Expression. Today we're going to continue from yesterday's lesson, except it is, I can say, more important lesson compared to yesterday. It is variables and expressions. So, Math 7 class, make sure you're ready for copying this title down and class example and definition. Today we have more lecture than the example time. So here's a situation. Imagine every single time you see some kind of shape pattern, number pattern, anything like that, imagine you're writing into a full English sentence or full sentences, paragraph to describe that phenomena or situation. It may drive the people crazy because it is so elaborative. There must be some easy way of doing it, right? So, here's what we do. We basically use some alphabet and plus, minus, multiplication, division sign to express that pattern. So, for example, imagine that Mr. Kim gives 5 candies to each student. Imagine that Mr. Kim, which is me myself, is somehow providing 5 candies to each student in this classroom. That means you may predict the pattern as soon as you see this scenario, because every single time, for example, let's put number of student on the left side and on the right side, number of candy. In this situation, you may look at, oh, okay, that means if there's one student, probably Mr. Kim will distribute 5 candy out of his pocket. If there's 2 students, probably, since it's fair, 5 per each, probably total 10 candies that he's gonna take it out from his pocket. If it's 3, there'll be 15, and you can go on and on and on and on. Basically, the problem is this, folks. It's infinite. Pattern can go infinitely. And we have hard time explaining this concept of infinite pattern in English or generally in any type of language just as a literacy way. It is hard to explain. So, what mathematician did or what people in Egypt and other places, Egypt, India, or ancient time, what people did was, you know what? Probably we can use some kind of unknown variable, let's say N, X, Y, A, B, alphabet, those kind of parts. And I'm going to say, you know what? This pattern is 5N, something like that. Technically, it's written as 5 times N, but in the math world, we write it like 5N. This is another language. From now on, starting with Math 7, we are going to learn expression using just numbers and symbols in order to express or describe a situation. If people see 5N, that means alphabet, N, X, Z, A, B, whatever you can think of, alphabet represent variable. And variable is basically a letter that represents an unknown number. And variable can be any number. Any number. So, for example, if I want to know, what if Mr. Kim had a class that's composed of 30 people? Then here's what happened. The expression 5n, I can substitute 30 inside, and I can say, yes, it's 5n, which is technically 5 times n. Instead of n, I can substitute this n as 30. And if you punch this number in calculator or use your algebra mental math in here, we can predict. Again, pattern is something that's predictable arrangement. I can predict how many candies that Mr. Kim will distribute if I have 30 students in my class, something like that. So, again, when it comes to variable, this is our first step. Variable is any type of number that we can use. So, we mathematician use alphabet to represent that any number can go in. Then, you may wonder, Mr. Kim, in the title it says variable and expression. What is expression? Well, expression is basically what you see in here. This is basically expression. If I give you the definition of expression, it is basically any single number or variable or a combination of operations involving numbers and variables. So, basically, let's write this. What is an expression? Expression is basically a way of explaining the pattern using symbols and variable. Sorry, I misspelled that. It is a way of explaining a pattern using variables, which again, it can be n, x, y, a, b, etc., etc., and symbols such as plus, minus, times, divide, those kind of things. And the reason we are using these is because basically we are smart people, but we are lazy at the same time. We don't want to write down sentences all the time, or we don't like to put basically paragraph all the time to explain the situation. It will make you tired too. So, the way that we use this is this. For example, if I see a pattern in a way that for example, decrease by 3. That means it's basically subtract by 3. Then if you find a pattern that decreased by 3, then basically you can say, oh, okay, I can have x minus 3 as an expression. Again, know the fact that this is my variable, which means any number can go in by having my variable and operation of the symbol, and with the numbers together, you can actually express my entire pattern just using the symbol and numbers. These are the key points of the lesson today. We can actually elaborate more in here. For example, every single time imagine you're divided. Actually, this is a little tricky for grade 7. Let's do in a way that imagine the condition is a little bit more tricky. Every single time, imagine you find a pattern that multiply by 2 and added by 2. Then how can we express this? Well, we need to first of all determine any of the variable first. Let's actually decide using a as a variable this time, which remember, a can be any number. This is an alphabet. We're using alphabet to write down any number situation. Multiply by 2. So that means, okay, any number can be multiplied by 2. And it can be added up by 2. This is my expression. It's not simplify. In order to simplify this, basically we can say 2a plus 2 is my expression. There's something that I want to point it out in here. Some people who is really sharp, you may notice that I omit showing the multiplication symbol. Well, here's a little rule too. Basically, multiplication and division symbols can be omitted in an expression. However, addition symbol and subtraction symbols cannot be omitted. This is something that I want to point it out. Now, today's lesson involved these. Basically identifying the pattern, number 1. And then, instead of explaining using words, we're using symbols, numbers, operation, plus, minus, multiplication, division, something like that, and show how everything goes. Let me show you how division part goes. If there's a division occur, like this, here is something that you need to make sure understand about how division can be omitted. In previous semester, we learned about fraction. The reason being is, if there's a number divided by another, we can actually express into a fraction. So, if you face any of the division, I want you to make it into a fraction without showing any of the division symbol inside of the expression. So this means 3 divided by variable, add it with 4 afterward. Today's homework is textbook page 361, number 4 and 5, textbook page 362, number 9, 10, and 11. That's my lesson today. Thank you.